and say, "What are you looking so sad about, Jam?"
Man, I'm surprised at you. I mean, I'm really insulted. I mean, that's not right what you just said.
What do you mean? What I just said?
I mean, I'm getting a drink of water. I'm late getting home, but you talking about. You said something about the greatest heavyweight champ, man. I'm a hometown man, and you talking about Joe Louis, man. Joe Louis wouldn't be nothing for me. Joe, I tell you, Joe, do you think you would have stood a chance with me?
Well, Clay, one time during my career, I went on a Formula One tour.
I would have been a bum compared to you.
Well, you know,
What's happening, my people? It's Cast Sports again, back for another afternoon with the family. That's right. You know what time it is. If it's Monday through Friday, 2 p.m., it's the Boxtorian, bringing you all that boxing history. Boxing is the greatest sport of them all. That's why we love it. Can't get enough of it. Salute to everyone and welcome to another episode of Cast Sports, the Boxtorian. Today, elusive fighters and impressive wins. That's the family today. We're going to talk about some of the elusive fighters like Sugar Ray, Ali, Floyd, Willie Pep, Low Sweet Pea, And we're going to talk about some impressive wins, some upsets we've had over the years. Dig into them a little bit. All that today on Cast Sports, the Boxtorian, bringing you all that boxing history. How was everybody's weekend? I missed all the fights. Slept right through all of them. Hope everybody had a good weekend. We're starting out another big week of boxing history right now. And tomorrow we're going to talk about some body punching tomorrow. Thursday, the country we're going to talk about is going to be Australia. And this is the first Friday of the month, so we're gonna profile an active boxer. This month is going to be the real deal, Amanda Serrano. Yep, we're gonna talk about her life and career Friday. We're gonna have we got two more. Today we're gonna look at the top 10 active fighters at junior flyweight 108, and then we're gonna finish up tomorrow with 105 minimum weight. Wednesday, I'm going to bring you my, not going to do the top 10 pound for pound list. It's going to be 10 of the most dominant fighters in boxing today. Probably the same 10 that would be on the pound for pound list, but it's going to be a little different. 10 of the most dominant fighters in boxing today, Wednesday, after we get finished going through all the active top 10s. Today, it's going to be junior flyweight 108, the 108 pound weight class. Okay, so let's get into that. Top 10 fighters in 108 pound weight class today. That's Mickey Yabuki. He's in the top 5 in junior flyweight and flyweight. Okay, but first let's look at a quick history of the junior flyweight division, 108 pounders. Little history of it before we get started. Okay. But how's everybody? It's Monday, back at the beginning of another big week of boxing history. We got the body punching tomorrow. Wednesday, we're going to talk about 10 of the most dominant fighters in boxing today. Thursday is going to be Australia when we look at our countries, history of our countries, boxing in some of the countries around the world, alphabetical order, just like the boxing in the States. Thursday is going to be Australia, and the profile Friday is the first Friday of the month, so it's an active boxer. Amanda Serrano this week. Technique in the building. What's up, Technique? But right now, we're going to talk about the top 10 active 108 pounders, junior flyweight. But first, a quick history, like a little 2-minute history of the division, not even that long. Okay. Now, junior flyweight was first established in 1920 by the New York Walker Law as junior flyweight at a weight limit of 108 pounds. Now, the division would soon be abolished, with no champion being given the title during that time. In the modern era, it was reintroduced by the WBC in 1975 as light flyweight. Now, the inaugural champion was Francisco Udella after a disqualification win against Valentin Martinez. Just 4 months after that fight, Jaime Rios defeated Rigoberto Marcano to become the WBA's first light flyweight world champion. The IBF followed in 1983 and the WBO in 1989. Now, the longest title reign at junior flyweight is held by South Korean boxer Myung Woo Ya with 17 consecutive title defenses. Okay. And notable junior flyweight champions through the years include Yoko Gushikin, Jung Koo Chang, Michael Carvajal, Humberto Gonzalez, and Myung Woo Ya. There's some of the many junior flyweight champions over the years, 108 pounders. So now let's look at the top 10. Current, the active 108 pounders. Okay. Number 1 is Masumiki Yabuki. Now, Yabuki is the reigning IBF world champion at flyweight 112, and he's ranked in the top 5 in both junior flyweight and flyweight, right? He's known for his aggressive front foot fighting style, okay? 18 wins, 4 losses, 17 knockouts. Only one man's went the distance with him in his career so far. 94.4% knockout ratio for Masamiki Yabuki. Ranked number 2 at junior flyweight is Renee Santiago. Renee Santiago. Santiago is a Puerto Rican professional boxer and has held the junior flyweight WBO title since March 2025. That is a few months ago. He won the title in his last outing he had on March 13th of this year, with a unanimous decision win over defending champion Shokichi Iwata. Okay, Santiago has 14 wins, 4 losses, and 9 knockouts. Ranked number 3 at junior flyweight is Panya Pardadri, or something like that. Panya Pardadri. Now, I'm going to go by his first name. Panya is a Thai professional boxer who's the reigning WBC champion in the division. Okay? Reigning WBC. He's known for a technical and effective boxing style. He transitioned from Muay Thai to boxing and has adapted well to the challenges of the boxing ring. Veteran fighter, 44 wins, 2 losses, 27 knockouts. Reigning WBC champion in the division. Okay? At number 4. Is Shokichi Iwata. Has recently lost his belt to Santiago. Remember, we just talked about that. Shokichi. Okay? Iwata. Iwata is a former junior flyweight champion, losing the WBO title in his last fight in March to Renee Santiago. Now, Iwata is a Japanese boxer, and he also held the Out-of-Pacific Boxing Federation and the WBO Asia Pacific light flyweight titles in 2022. 14 wins, 2 losses, 11 knockouts. Let's see. I don't know why I didn't figure out the knockout ratio. That don't seem too bad. 78.5%, not bad. Okay. Low amount of fights. Only 3 went the distance with him, but he don't have that many fights. Keep on at that rate, it'll go up as he gets more fights. Right. Coming in at number 5 at junior flyweight is Savanati Natshinga. Natshinga is a 2-time IBF junior flyweight world champion. He's a South African pro boxer with a technical boxing style characterized by sharp footwork, a strong jab, and a preference for fighting off the back foot. 13 wins, 2 losses, 10 knockouts. Okay. Number 6, Carlos Canizales. Carlos Canizales, number 6 at 108. Canizales is a Venezuelan pro boxer and the former WBA junior flyweight champion. From 2018 to 2023, he had a 5-year reign. Canizales has a versatile boxing style. He's capable of both boxing and moving, fighting on the inside and breaking down opponents from distance. Okay? He fight on the inside and can break you down from distance with his jab. 27 wins, 3 losses, 1 draw, 19 knockouts for Carlos Canizales from Venezuela, number 6. Number 7, Adrian Curiel, 7 at junior flyweight. Adrian Curiel. Now, Curiel is a Mexican fighter and former IBF champion in the division. His boxing style involves switching between orthodox and southpaw stances, switch hitter, right? He's known for being a pressure fighter who likes to get inside and work the body. 26 wins, 6 losses, 1 draw, 5 knockouts. Okay, number 8, at junior flyweight. 108 pounders today. Thanon Sack Simsbury. Simsbury is the reigning IBF champion in the division. He's a Thai boxer who transitioned from Muay Thai to pro boxing, bringing his strong punching skills with him from his Muay Thai background. 39 wins, just one loss, 34 knockouts, 87.1% knockout ratio. Okay. Number 9 at 108, Christian Araneta. Christian Araneta, there's Christian. The funny hairstyle there. Probably ain't funny to Christian there. Okay. Got the bang hanging over. The bang look. Christian Araneta. Araneta is nicknamed the Bomb. B-O-M-B, the Bomb. He's a Filipino pro boxer, competing in the junior flyweight division, right? He's known for his strong knockout power from his southpaw stance. 25 wins, 3 losses, 20 by knockout, 80% knockout ratio on the dot. And rounding out the top 10 at junior flyweight, the 108 pounders today, Reggie Sugarnod. Reggie Sugarnod. Reggie is another Filipino rising star in the division, coming off of back-to-back stoppage wins, known as the Filipino Phenom. He challenged unsuccessfully for the IBF Junior Flyweight title in 2023. 16 wins, 1 loss, 6 knockouts for the Phenom, the Filipino Phenom. Okay. All right. So now today we're gonna talk about some elusive fighters. We're going to talk about some of the most impressive wins in boxing history. And we're going to talk about some examples of great boxers that have great boxing skills, but very little knockout power. We're going to talk about like 9 or 10 fighters that have been champion with no knockouts in their careers, okay? I found 9 or 10 guys that have been champions in their careers, 0.00 knockout ratio. Okay. And then we've talked about Buster Douglas and Mike Tyson a lot, but we're going to look at exactly what happened today in that fight. Did Buster Douglas really beat Mike Tyson, or was it fixed? We're going to look at that today. And what is the worst fight in boxing history? All that today on Cash Sports the Box Story, bringing you all that boxing history. Okay, so let's get started. First, the elusive fighters. Okay, we're going to talk about some elusive fighters first. There's the elusive one right there. That's Willie Pepper Sandy Saddle. Picture is to highlight Willie, of course. Okay, let's talk about the most elusive fighters in boxing history. Okay, some of the most elusive fighters in boxing history. But how was everybody's weekend? I missed all the fights. My plan was to take a nap and wake up so I could see all of them. You know, every fight might go 12 rounds. That'll go late. So, right? So, but when I woke up, everything was over with. But, you know, nowadays you can get the highlights immediately. Back in the day, you had to wait like a week at the minimum to see any highlights. But now you can get them immediately. So, yeah, I was able to see what went on this weekend. Okay. Let's talk about some of these elusive fighters. What's up, Define Arnie One? How are you today? God bless you too, my brother. Okay. Yeah, we're going to talk about some elusive fighters right now. Some of the most elusive fighters in boxing history. Let's Define Arnie One. Okay. Now, the most elusive boxers in history are those who were hard to hit cleanly and effectively. Now, such elusiveness can be due to footwork, foot speed, hand speed, reflexes, and or anticipation. Now, the best defensive boxers combine all of these traits, all of those above traits. You know, footwork, foot speed, hand speed, reflexes, and or anticipation. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the will-o'-the-wisp first. Willie Pep. Okay, now you know Willie Pep was called the will-o'-the-wisp because he was so difficult to hit. Arguably the greatest featherweight of all time. Pep won his first 62 fights, lost to Sammy Anger, then went undefeated for his next 73 fights, for 134 wins, 1 losses, 1 draw record at one point in his career. Now he finished his pro career with a record of 229 wins, 11 losses, 1 draw. Now before a 1946 fight with Jackie Graves, who was no slouch himself, Pep told the reporters at ringside, "Watch me in the 3rd round. I'm going to win the 3rd round without throwing a punch." And in the 3rd round, Pep avoided every punch Graves threw while making him look ridiculous. And all 3 judges scored the round for Pep. Now, while the story sounds suspicious, the legendary Burt Sugar himself reported it as factual in his ultimate book, A Boxing List. And knowing Burt Sugar, he was probably there. Burt Sugar said it was a true story. Okay? Now, Ken Capace said about Willie Pep, he said, fighting Willie Pep was like trying to stamp out a grass fire. And Pat Marcoon, these are other fighters, he said about Willie Pep. He said, he's in front of you, he's in back of you, he's all over the damn place. But he never stood toe-to-toe with him. Joe Louis said about Willie Pep, you can see him, but you still can't hit him. Now, of course, Joe Louis didn't fight Willie Pep because Joe Louis was a heavyweight. Willie Pep, I don't think, ever fought over featherweight. But they fought right around the same era, and Joe Louis saw a lot of Willie Pep fights, and that's what he said. You can see him, still can't hit him. Now, the best defensive fighters create offense from their defense. And this will be a theme of this ranking, this Elusive Fighters ranking. And we will encounter other great counterpunchers on this list. Now, Willie Pep was an all-time great counterpuncher as far as landing punches and scoring points, right? But some of the great counterpunchers could knock you out with a single shot, as the next fighter on this list did to the great Sonny Liston in their 2nd fight. So you know who that is. The next fighter who knocked Sonny Liston out with 1 punch in their 2nd fight. Arguably, right? Okay, because a lot of people call it the Phantom Punch. Now, Muhammad Ali in his prime was incredibly fast for a heavyweight with his hands, feet, and reflexes. In fact, Ali might have had the fastest hands of any boxer, regardless of weight class. Now, Ali often fought with his hands low and used his cat-like quickness and reflexes to dodge his opponent's punches. Now, when Ali knocked Sonny Liston out in their 2nd fight, the punch came from beneath Liston's field of vision and was so blindingly fast that it became known as the Phantom Punch. But in reality, it was the result of defense turning into offense in a split second or less. Now, that's not the only reason it's called the Phantom Punch because it was so fast. It's also called the Phantom Punch because many people in attendance in the front row didn't even see the punch land, right? That's the main reason it's called the Phantom Punch. Now, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. The hands can't hit, but the eyes can't see. Muhammad Ali. Fighter Cleveland Williams said about Ali, you can't hit him. You just cannot hit him. I threw hooks. I threw uppercuts. I missed them all. Hell, I couldn't even land a jab on him. That's what Cleveland Williams said about Ali. Another fighter, Zora Fowley, said, you can't hit him, but he sure can hit you. Now, Ali was an expert at the rope-a-dope and was the master of the back pedal knockout. Ali's ability to change tactics in the middle of a fight made him a hard boxer to solve. And if you did figure him out, he would change tactics into a different fighter right before your eyes. And his iron chin and iron torso were important components of his defense. Ken Norton said hitting Ali was like hitting concrete. And Mike Mazik in the building. What's up, Mike Mazik? How are you today? How was the weekend, Mike? Good to see you today. Yeah, we're talking about some elusive fighters. We just talked about Willie Pep, and Ali is just the second one, okay? And the weight class for the top 10 today was junior flyweight. Tomorrow is it? Minimum weight. Then Wednesday, we're going to talk about the 10 most dominant fighters in boxing today. Instead of a pound for pound list, but it's probably the same 10 that would be on the pound for pound list, right? Let's salute Mike Mazik. Okay. Now, Ali's defense has actually been underrated. And while he's been criticized for keeping his hands low, that was the key to his great counterpunching. Because like they say about because Ali's opponents often didn't see his counterpunch coming until it was too late, if they saw it at all. And like they said about the phantom punch, Liston didn't see it because it came below his field of vision. That was a big reason Ali carried his hands low, not showboating, because a lot of the punches came below his opponent's field of vision. They couldn't, they helped them, Ali, they couldn't see the punches coming because he carried his hands so low, right? There was a strategy to that, with a purpose, to him carrying those hands low, okay? Now, the best defense transforms into offense, and Ali could change from an unhittable butterfly into a stinging bee in an instant, in the blink of an eye. And that is why Ali dominated the golden age of heavyweights. It all started with his defense and opponents failing to land punches, which left them off balance and vulnerable to blindingly fast counters. Now, those counters may have at times been unorthodox, but just consider the results of them. Muhammad Ali, the greatest. Yeah, Xander. Oh yeah, he found on. He says, Xander is champion. So we know he had a great weekend. Yeah. I know that's right. You fired on he won. Yeah, Xander Zayas. It's thing. Okay. You see the man on the screen there? We talking about elusive fighters. Man, I wouldn't even deserve to talk boxing if I'm talking about elusive fighters that don't put Sweet Pea in the conversation, right? Pernell Sweet Pea Whitaker was an exceptionally slippery southpaw. Sweet Pea's opponents may have thought they were boxing a Teflon-coated eel. He was that hard to hit cleanly. Oscar De La Hoya was the only boxer who fought both Sweet Pea and Floyd. Oscar was their only common opponent, Oscar De La Hoya, right? And even though Sweet Pea was well past his prime when he fought Oscar, and Floyd was right in his prime when he fought Oscar, Oscar said Sweet Pea was better defensively than Floyd. As a matter of fact, Oscar said Sweet Pea was in a class of his own when it comes to defense. Anybody remember the Marvel hero, Mr. Fantastic? He was like the plastic man. He could just turn himself and make his body into all different kinds of shapes. That's how Sweet Pea was, right? He could do things with his body that was just crazy. He could bend over backwards and dodge punches just as far as the average person could bend over going forward, right? Sweet Pea could. Yes, he could. Pernell Whitaker, one of the greatest defensive fighters ever. Sweet Pea had an unorthodox southpaw style, coupled with an almost supernatural ability to avoid punches. Okay, that's what boxing historian Rob King said about Sweet Pea. Yeah, he was incredible. You know, Oscar said Oscar is the only common opponent between Floyd and Sweet Pea. He said Sweet Pea was in a class of his own, and somebody asked him who was better defensively. Yeah. Oscar said Sweet Pea. And remember, Sweet Pea was past his prime when he fought Oscar, and Floyd was right in the middle of his. Mm-hmm. Nicolino Loche was nicknamed El Intocable, or in English, the Untouchable. There is no higher praise for a great defensive boxer than to be called the Untouchable, right? He was a master of slipping punches on the ropes. Now, you could corner him and cut the ring off on Nicolino Loche, but it still wouldn't do you no good. Loche used the shoulder roll and his preternatural reflexes to make opponents miss and miss and miss again. It wasn't even called the shoulder roll back there, but Nicolino was using it. Okay? Joe Kane said, slicker than a buttered otter, Loche made some very good fighters look like drunken factory workers trying to take a swing at the doorman. Nicolino Loche. And underrated because you hear about the great defensive fighters. You always hear Sweet Pea, Floyd, Willie Pep. Nicolino Loche is just as good or better than all of them. Mm-hmm. Could be. How did you get in there, Roy Jones? You're not. Roy Jones is on here, but he's not next. That's who's next right there. Radar. Man was called Radar. Okay? Wilfred Benitez was nicknamed El Radar for his uncanny anticipation, right? He could anticipate punches and stuff, so before they even came, they called him Radar. Sugar Ray Leonard paid Benitez a tremendous compliment when Sugar Ray Leonard said, no one, I mean no one, ever made me miss like Wilfred Benitez did, right? That's what Sugar Ray said. No one made him miss like Radar did. Yeah, you find on it. That's the highest compliment you can pay a defensive fighter. Call him untouchable. Oh yeah, you got Wilfred number one. I think him and Carlos Ortiz, it's hard, but he's up there. One or two. Fine. What's up, Thomas Hill in the building? We're talking about some elusive fighters right now, T Hill. Well, we got a good one for you today. Good ones. We're gonna talk about some of the most impressive wins of all time. But right now, some elusive defensive fighters. Okay. Radar was last. What's the last one we talked about? Okay. Money. Now, Floyd Mayweather Jr. was a great defensive boxer. Many boxing experts and fans consider the money version of Mayweather to have been the greatest defensive fighter of all time. Like, Pretty Boy was more offensive. So many people say the money version was the best defensive fighter of all time. But others say that the money version of Floyd avoided fighting the best boxers in their prime and wasn't fully tested. It's not me saying that. That's just some article of people. I found some articles people saying that. Money wasn't fully tested because he fought fighters at opportune time. It's not me saying that. Now, Floyd was famous for his shoulder roll and sometimes looked like a turtle peeking out from his invulnerable armor. This odd-looking defense is called the Philly shell because it was employed and evangelized by Philadelphian boxer and trainer George Benton, who is also in this ranking. We're going to talk about George Benton. That's why they call it the Philly shell, because George was from Philly, right? And a lot of people say he invented it, but they were doing the shoulder roll. I don't think he invented it. They was doing that way back, Archie Moore and Nicolino Loche. And they wasn't calling it the shoulder roll then, but they sure was using it. I've seen Archie Moore use the shoulder roll back in the late 40s, early 50s, yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, Floyd was a great counterpuncher, right? With excellent accuracy. So his defense led to much of his offense, similar to Ali's. Now, in his article on the great counterpunchers, boxing expert Greg Seekins praised Mayweather's clever jolting counterpunches. Now, according to CompuBox, Floyd connected on 46% of his punches throughout his career in his fights, compared to only 16% by his opponents, right? That's an amazing plus 30% differential. That's called the plus minus punch differential. Now, his opponent's total connect percentage on Floyd, 16.1%. That's the lowest ever since CompuBox started tracking punches. But, and this is a big, huge but with 10 exclamation points behind it. Please keep in mind that when great defensive fighters like Willie Pep, Nicolino Loach were fighting, we didn't have CompuBox. And I believe if we did, Willie Pep would be lower than 16% opponents' total connect percentage. I think Willie Pep would probably be better than Floyd's, but we did not have CompuBox back then, okay? So that's a huge but. So Floyd is the lowest in history since CompuBox started measuring that type of stat, you know, total connect percentage, opponent's total connect percentage and that type of thing. But keep in mind, we didn't have it when Willie Pep, Nicolino Loach were fighting, okay? I really think, I don't know about Nicolino, but I really think Willie Pep would have probably been lower than Floyd. Man won a round without throwing a punch. Remember? Talking about some elusive fighters, elusive / great defensive fighters. James Lights Out Tony was a master of slipping punches. He was also known for his shoulder roll. The great trainer Freddie Roach considered Tony to have been one of the most naturally gifted boxers of all time. Okay? What if Ant listened? Tony is his man when it comes to boxing. Yeah, Freddie Roach called James Toney one of the most naturally gifted boxers of all time. Lights Out was primarily a counterpuncher, and he counted a lot, capital L-O-T, a lot. James Toney is the only boxer to land over 400 punches in title fights, not once, not twice, not three, but 4 times, over 400 punches in 4 different title fights, okay? Tony used the Philly shell as well as it's ever been used in the boxing ring, seamlessly flowing from defense to attack mode with its elusive infighting and devastating counter shots, right? In an online poll by BoxRaw, in an online poll by the site BoxRaw, Tony was second only to Floyd Mayweather as a master of the shoulder roll. And many pick him as number 1, including Cash Sports The Box Story. You know, I put Tony over Floyd when it comes to the shoulder roll. Okay? Yeah, sure do. The front on says Orlando Canizales and Emmanuel Augustus come to mind as great elusive fighters as well. Yep, that's a good point. Define Arnie one. That is a great point that you just made there. Okay. Define Arnie one. They don't usually put stuff up there, but a great point like that got to be highlighted. Yeah. Oh boy, now I can't get back to where I was at. Yes, I can. There we go. A great point, Define Arnie one. Orlando Canizales and Emmanuel Augustus come to mind as great elusive fighters as well. Yes, they do. Okay. So we were on Lights Out was the last one, right? Okay. Yeah, we're done with Lights Out, but a great counterpuncher. And BoxRaw put him number 2 to Floyd with the shoulder roll. I put him number 1 with the shoulder roll. As far as now, recent history. And remember Archie Moore, Nicolino Loach, those guys were using the shoulder roll before they was even calling it the shoulder roll. You know, I got Archie Moore on film. I think I got a picture of him here using the shoulder roll, as a matter of fact. Back in the late 40s, early 50s. Okay? So let's move on. Okay? Talking about some elusive fighters right now. Sugar Ray Robinson was a master of both offense and defense. His defensive artistry included the ability to slip and evade punches. and he was a devastating counterpuncher with both hands. Sugar Ray was. Yeah. There's George Benton right there. They call him the father of the, that's why they call it the Philly Shell, because of George Benton from Philly, fighter. That's where the Philly Shell name came from, George Benton. Now, George Benton was a master of the shoulder roll. He hailed from Philadelphia, and the defensive technique became known as the Philly Shell. Benton has been called the godfather of the Philly Shell. Now, the boxers he trained or otherwise advised include Pernell Whitaker, Joe Frazier, Evander Holyfield, Leon Spinks, Meldrick Taylor, and Mike McCallum. Benton was the first great defensive boxer mentioned in an article by Phase Boxing on the subject of the Philly Shell. In an online poll by BoxRaw, Benton was tied for third as a master of the shoulder roll, tied with his pupil Pernell Sweet Whitaker, behind only Floyd and Lights Out James Toney. And Benton probably would have ranked higher if he were as well known as the other members of the top four: Floyd Mayweather, James Toney, and Pernell Whitaker. Yeah, a lot of people don't know who George Benton is, but they definitely could tell you who Floyd, Sweet Pea, and James Lights Out Toney are. So yeah, Benton probably would be ranked higher if he was more well known. That is very true. Talking about some elusive fighters now. Charles Burley was a great defensive fighter and savage counterpuncher. The legendary trainer Eddie Futch called Burley the greatest all-around fighter he had ever seen, Eddie Futch. And the legendary Archie Moore, himself a master of defense and counterpunching, called Burley the best fighter he ever been in the ring with. The Mongoose / Old Mongoose. And speaking of Archie Moore, there he is. Yeah, I had a picture somewhere of him using the shoulder roll way back there. But Archie Moore was nicknamed the Mongoose, and then later in his career, the Old Mongoose, because he fought so long. And he had that Mongoose nickname for a reason. Now, a Cobras will testify that a Mongoose is impossible to hit. And this boxing expert and historian Briggs Seekins observed, Archie Moore used the shoulder roll and a cross-arm guard to make himself nearly impregnable defensively. And just as the Mongoose draws the Cobra forward to his own doom, Moore would lead his opponents in the perfect position, right? Lead him in the perfect position for his dangerous power shots. And he was the number 2 most knockouts in boxing history, okay? Seekins also rates Archie Moore as the number 1 counterpuncher of all time with a stunning 132 knockouts in his career, number 2 all time. Billy somebody got 139. I can't never remember his name. In this case, the proof is in the pudding. The wily Old Mongoose was a pioneer of what would come to be known as the shoulder roll. If Archie Moore didn't invent it, he sure perfected it, because he was using it before it was called the shoulder roll. Okay? Yeah, if he didn't invent it, he sure perfected it. The Old Mongoose. Jersey Joe Walcott gave Joe Louis and Rocky Marciano real problems with his defensive wizardry. Walcott was a master of the shoulder roll and used his unorthodox footwork to confound opponents. Yeah, all these people was using it. Archie Moore, Nicolino Loach, Jersey Joe, all before it was even called the shoulder roll. Way back then in the 50s and 40s. Yeah. Okay, Roy Jones Jr. had almost superhuman speed in his prime and was hard to find, much less hit. Roy was usually gone before the opponent's punch arrived. Okay, Roy Jones Jr. Okay, that's Joe Kawasaki. Joe Kawasaki was faster and slicker than Roy Jones Jr., according to some boxing experts. And when they finally met in the ring, Kawasaki put on a boxing clinic and won the fight. But Roy Jones was no longer at his best when they met. So we still had to give Roy the defensive edge. Okay? But Joe beat him. He put on a boxing clinic. Mr. 46-0. That Joe Kawasaki. Ezra Charles was known for its slick defense and skillful employment of the shoulder roll. And as another one, it wasn't even called the shoulder roll then, yeah. A lot of fighters used that way back there. Early as the 40s, they were using the shoulder roll. Didn't have a name for it though. Gene Tunney, nicknamed the Fighting Marine, was one of the all-time great ring technicians. Tunney combined a terrific jab and lateral movement with tremendous counterpunching. Tunney was one of boxing's first sweet scientists, a highly skilled technician who didn't rely on brute force to defeat great boxers like Jack Dempsey and Harry Graham. Yeah, Tunney was a sweet scientist before the sweet science even came into boxing. You know, Tunney, Joe Gans, Jack Dempsey, to a certain extent, were all using the sweet science, and most boxers just stood there toe-to-toe, swinging for the fences, trying to get you out of there. Yeah, those three were the first three really mainly to use the sweet science in boxing. Joe Gans, Gene Tunney, Jack Dempsey. Yep. Juan Manuel Marquez was a master of the sidestep and fighting in the phone booth. He was also a great counterpuncher. Let's ask Manny Pacquiao, who learned the hard way when Marquez sent him into dreamland. Okay? You want to know how great of a counterpuncher Juan Manuel Marquez is? Just ask Manny Pacquiao. He'll tell you. Don't take my word for it, ask Manny. Benny Leonard was a highly skilled boxer known for his defensive wizardry. The ghetto wizard. Benny Leonard. That's what they called him, the ghetto wizard. What is a great nickname. Jimmy Young Jimmy Young, George Foreman was unable to solve Jimmy Young's tricky defense, and Muhammad Ali was stymied by Young's speed and unconventional tactics, although Ali managed to win on points. But Ken Norton called Ali and Young's fight a draw, and others thought Jimmy Young won the fight, including me. Bernard Hopkins was a master of boxing's darker arts, right? Bernard wasn't above hitting low or behind the head if he could get away with it. A modern day Fritzy Zivik. Yeah, Fritzy was invented the darker arts and illegal. It's Fritzy Zivik back in the day invented some illegal punches. That's how bad he was. Fritzy invented some illegal punches. Vasyl Lomachenko. You talking about elusive fighters? How can you not have Lomachenko on the list? Okay. Vasyl Lomachenko, aka the Matrix, had great anticipation and footwork. Lomachenko was able to slip and slide away from danger, leaving his opponents feeling like they were boxing a shadow. Now Lomachenko had a plus-minus punch differential of plus 20.9, second only to Floyd Mayweather for modern era boxers. And his opponent's total connect percentage was an excellent 18.3%. Yep, Guillermo Rigondeaux. Rigondeaux was a two-time Olympic gold medalist who was very hard to hit cleanly. Rigondeaux had great footwork and could make his opponents look silly at times. And he had an opponent's total connect percentage an excellent 16.7%, second only to Floyd Mayweather's 16.1% since CompuBox started measuring that stat. Opponent's total connect percentage for his career, 16.7%. That's 0.6 of a percentage point behind Floyd Mayweather Jr., who was number one. Now, Larry Holmes used this excellent jab to keep other boxers at bay. The Eastern Assassin did. Prime Erslandy Lara was elusive as well. Yeah, he makes honorable mention. You find Arnie? I got an honorable mention. Yeah, Erslandy made that. Smoking Joe Frazier had great head movement. His barb and weave style made him hard to hit cleanly and allowed him to move in close for thunderous left hooks and pulverizing body shots. Smoking Joe. Had that barb and weave. Joe Frazier's footwork don't get talked about enough. Watch him fight with them little small steps, man. Never out of position. Always coming forward. Watch the Ali fights and Ali doing all that dancing and Frazier taking those little small footsteps, was right there with him. And Ali moving around, taking those long steps, dancing. Frazier just steadily coming forward with those little half steps, they right in Ali's face. Check it out when you're watching those fights. Watch Joe Frazier's footwork. The most underrated footwork in boxing history. Joe Frazier had excellent footwork, man. With those little small steps, never out of position. Bobbing and weaving and weaving and bobbing. Smoking Joe Frazier. Like Albert Cosell says, Smoking Joe Frazier. Not Frazier, Frazier. Iron Mike Tyson was another barb and weave boxer with great head movement. Tyson was underrated as a great defensive boxer when he was training rather than partying nonstop. Yeah, before Don King and Robin Gibbons, Mike was a great defensive boxer during the Customato era when he had Kevin Rooney as his trainer, and Kevin knew him better than anybody. Evander Holyfield was the best counterpuncher he ever faced, said Mike Tyson. Yep, he said Evander was the best counterpuncher he ever faced. He was young. Mike was getting him out of there so fast, nobody had a chance to counter him. Right? Yeah. Oh, yeah, Too Sharp was that guy Define Arnie one. Too Sharp Johnson. His transitions from offense to defense and vice versa were seamless. Yes, he was, T.L. Yeah, Too Sharp Johnson. Yeah, that's another great point right there. Mark Too Sharp Johnson was great going from defense to offense. He certainly was. I think he's in the honorable mentions too. Yeah, we got some honorable mentions in a few minutes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, let's finish this up. Okay, Stanley Ketchum was nicknamed the Michigan Assassin, but he was an excellent defensive fighter as well. Ketchum has been compared to Manny Pacquiao. Yep, the great Stanley Ketchum, the Michigan Wolverine. Okay, let's see. Oh, Rocky Marciano. This is the last one for this segment. The Rock. Yeah, great defensive fighter, because check this out. No, this is not the last. One more after him. Rocky Marciano was always underrated for his defense, perhaps because his offense was so overpowering. But you do not go 49-0 and retire undefeated without having a good defense. Okay, impossible. Last one for the elusive fighters. Marcos Madonna used his jab and erratic angles to keep his fight with Floyd close by disrupting the money man's greatest offensive weapon, the counterpunching. You got to give Madonna a salute. Any boxer who can counter a counter, right? And Winky Wright was known for his peekaboo boxing style. You know, Winky could use it in the high guard, cover his head and body. Honorable mentions for elusive fighters: Demetrius Andrade, Dimitri Bivol, Timothy Bradley, Chris Bird, Hector Macho Camacho, Gentleman Jim Corbett, Donald Curry, George Dixon, Fearless Jim Driscoll, Johnny Famachon, Bob Fitzsimmons, Tyson Fury, Mikey Garcia, Urslan De Lara, Miguel Laura, Tommy Laughlin, Eric Morales, Eusebio Pedraza, Dwight Muhammad Kwawi, Michael Spinks, Shakur Stevenson, Holman Williams, and Hilario Zapata. Okay, so now let's talk about, we're going to talk about now some of the most impressive wins in boxing history. Some upsets and stuff we've covered before, but we're going to dig into them. There's George Foreman. That's the Rumble in the Jungle. I thought that was a nice picture there. This George Foreman. I think they had a blimp or something in there. You know, they had those little miniature blimps flying around basketball arenas. They had one of them to take that picture. I don't know, but yeah, I like that picture. But now, yeah, some of the most impressive wins in boxing history. Okay, and that was let's see. What did we just talk about? The elusive boxers. Yeah, check that off. Okay, let's talk about some of these most impressive wins in boxing history. Okay. And every time all weekend, as soon as I hit this, it came right up, and now I can't find it. Okay. Let's see, but I am going to. But how was everybody's weekend? I missed all the fights. I slept through everything. There it is, right there. Okay, let's look at some of the most impressive wins in boxing history. That's the Rumble in the Jungle. See Big George laying on the mat, Ali, all of that. That was an impressive one, very impressive win right there for Ali. Look at that, a half foul. That's the way I thought timed it this weekend for that segment to last 1/2 hour, and it did. Wow. Okay. Now, these are the most impressive underdog wins in boxing history. Okay. Muhammad Ali upset Big George Foreman in the infamous Rumble in the Jungle. Now, at the time, Ali was considered past his prime, as he undoubtedly was, having lost much of his speed and no longer able to dance like a butterfly. Now, Foreman was definitely in his prime and seemed invincible. This was the fight that shocked the world and convinced many boxing fans that Ali really was the greatest, as he had so long claimed to be. Okay? Muhammad Ali, Rumble in the Jungle. That's Buster Douglas and Mike Tyson. Okay, yeah, Ali listed. No, that's right. It was Buster Douglas and Mike Tyson is next. Right? Buster, we're going to talk about that a little bit later too. This fight, Buster Douglas, like we never talked about it before. We're going to look at exactly what happened. But another seemingly invincible boxer, the undefeated heavyweight champion, Iron Mike Tyson, lost by a shocking knockout to the 42-1 underdog, James Buster Douglas. This fight is widely regarded as the biggest upset in sports history. Okay, but Ali Foreman is right up there with it, because that monumental upset had far greater long-term implications for Ali than Douglas's win over Tyson, and for the sport, the Ali win over Foreman, and for the larger world, as Ali became the most recognized face on the planet. Okay, so yeah, I would say Ali's win over Foreman was even bigger than Buster's. But that was more recent, you know. But yeah, I would pick Ali over Foreman. Now, Ali upset another seemingly invincible heavyweight, Sonny Liston, in their first fight. Now, the upsettingness of this win is a bit more questionable due to questions about Liston's age and health. Some people said Liston was damn near 50 then, right, at the time. But it still was a shock. Liston had twice demolished Floyd Patterson in a single round and was widely regarded as invincible. Some boxing fans and experts feared for Ali's life and health, right? But Ali shocked the world, as he put it himself, on his path to boxing immortality. In that one, yes, he did. He shocked the world. Sugar Ray Leonard defeated Marvelous Marvin Hagler. Now, as boxing expert Michael Corbett observed, when Sugar Ray Leonard emerged to challenge Hagler, the pundits and experts regarded it as pure folly on Ray's part. The smaller man with only one fight in 5 years surely represented an easy knockout for Hagler, not to mention a huge payday. But Leonard won a split decision win, making himself a candidate for the all-time top 10, while a heavily favored Hagler never fought again. Yep. Now I put this one. This wasn't an upset. Hagler Hearns was not an upset, right? But it was one of the great ring wars. Round one was called the best round in professional boxing history. Thomas Hearns and Marvin Hagler. They were throwing so many punches at each other. You would think you were watching a Rocky Balboa versus Apollo Creed movie. You thought you was watching a made-up movie the way they were going at it. Hearns and Hagler. Yeah. Max Schmeling handed Joe Louis the first loss of his pro career. Now, the Brown Bomber came back to demolish Schmeling in the second fight, but their first one, Schmeling was watching film and he noticed that when Joe Louis threw that left jab, when returning it back to his defensive stance, he always brought it back low. After he landed, he always brought it on the way back, he curved it low. And then Max Schmeling noticed that and waited by this time. And in that 12th round, he came over the top and knocked Joe Louis out cold. But Louis got him back in the rematch. But yeah, that was Joe Louis's first loss. And he was kind of thought of as kind of invincible at that time, too, because he was just running through everybody. He had knocked out the last 5 previous heavyweight champions before him, Joe Louis had, leading up to that fight with Schmeling. The last 5 previous heavyweight champions at that time, Joe Louis had knocked every one of them out. So when Schmeling knocked him out, it was a shocker. 1936. Randy Turpin, a 20-1 underdog long shot, defeated the great Sugar Ray Robinson, who had been undefeated in 90 consecutive fights. Okay? 90 consecutive fights. And what a up. That's why he was 20-1 favorite. Nobody gave Turpin a chance. Now, the Fight City noted, Sugar Ray found himself with an empty gas tank in the late rounds. and dropped a clear-cut decision to Turpin, who had never gone past the 8th round. So everybody thought that Turpin was going to be the one to run out of gas because he had never went past the 8th round. Sugar Ray had been 15 rounds many times, but Sugar Ray ran out of gas in the middle rounds, and Turpin was the one that took advantage of it. Yeah, a shocker. Chrissy Zivic upsets Homicide Hank, Henry Armstrong. At that time, Henry Armstrong had won 18 straight title defense in the welterweight division coming into this fight. And Fritzy Zivic, I just talked about him, remember? Like I said, Fritzy Zivic invented some illegal punches. Zivic was best known for low blows, rabbit punches, thumbing, and various other of the darker ring arts. But Zivic stunned the boxing world in this one by pounding Armstrong and almost stopping him in the final round. Got the clear-cut decision, but almost stopped Homicide Hank, okay? Almost stopped him. Impressive wins. Got to talk about this one again. I'm sorry. Sugar Ray Leonard, Thomas Hearns. Sugar Ray was almost blinded with cuts and swelling. Behind all cards, blood in his eyes, knocked Thomas Hearns through the ropes in the 13th round. Hearns didn't recover between rounds, and Sugar Ray stopped him in 14. Many people, including the legendary Thomas Hill, feel the fight was stopped too soon. Many people felt that they stopped it too soon. Hearns was leading on all cards. Sugar Ray needed a knockout. Yeah. Many experts, including the legendary Thomas Hill, feels it was stopped too soon. And many other experts felt that way. Okay. Gene Tunney. There's Gene Tunney. Wait a minute, I missed something. Oh yeah. Big George Foreman knocked out Michael Moore at 45 years of age to win the WBA and IBF heavyweight titles. Moore had just won the belt by defeating Evander Holyfield, who had defeated Foreman, but that triangle theory don't work, right? And Teddy Atlas, the great Teddy Atlas, Moore's trainer, had told him, go out there and box from the outside for the rest of the fight. You got it. One, he needs a knockout. Moore goes out there and runs right up in the pocket and gets knocked out. But his great trainer, Teddy Atlas, told him not to do that. Why do you have a trainer if you're not going to listen to him? Be your own trainer and save the money then, right? His trainer told him to box from the outside. He had to fight one. One, he went straight up into the pocket and got knocked out. Y'all saw the fight? Yeah. Why didn't he follow Teddy Atlas's instructions and box from the outside? We'll never know. I bet he wish he had her when he was laying there on that mat out cold. It was too late then. He had one of the greatest trainers in the game at that time telling you what to do, but you do the opposite and got knocked out. Gene Tunney upsets the great Jack Dempsey twice. He did it twice. Tunney was the smaller man, while Dempsey was a savage and ferocious boxer who had once lived as a hobo fighting for money to eat, right? If he didn't win, he didn't eat. That's how Jack Dempsey was. And Tunney may well be the most underrated boxer of all time, right? But not by Jack Dempsey. But to be fair, Jack Dempsey hadn't fought in 3 years because he wanted to fight the black fighter, Harry Wills. But the government had given all the promoters orders not to make that fight because they had the last championship fight between a black fighter and a white fighter had caused race riots. So the government didn't want that to happen again. So they gave the promoters orders not to make that fight. And Dempsey got pissed off and said, well, y'all won't let me fight who I want to fight. I'm not fighting nobody. So he came back after 3 years and fought Tunney and got beat. So to be fair, Jack Dempsey fighting regular during those 3 years probably would have demolished Tunney. So, yeah. Just Do Boxing in the building. What's up, Just Do? Coming up at 4 p.m. with that balanced, unbiased boxing talk. Everybody gets to Just Do. At Just Do Boxing. Salute Just Do. Yeah, we talking about some of the most impressive wins in history now. Mostly upsets. Okay. Kirkland Lang and Roberto Duran. That was a big one there. Yeah, Kirkland Lang and Roberto Duran. Kirkland Lang humbles Roberto Duran, the man with the hands of stone. But to his credit, the aging and seemingly washed up Duran would stage a remarkable comeback, solidifying his status as a top pound-for-pound boxer of all time. He made a nice comeback, became champion again. Roberto Duran might still be fighting down there in Panama. Who knows? He's in his 70s. The only reason he stopped was because he was like 50-something still fighting, but then he was in a life-threatening car accident and the doctors told him, Roberto, don't get back in that ring. So that was it. Other than that car accident, he would still be fighting. Right now, today, the hands of stone, Roberto Duran, one of the greatest of all time. The greatest lightweight of all time. The hands of stone. Y'all knew that was coming. Okay. Let's see. James J. Braddock becomes a Cinderella man. Right? By defeating the heavily favored heavyweight champion Max Baer in a 15-round unanimous decision. Now, prior to this fight, Braddock had been widely considered a washed-up has-been, if not a never was. He had a not-so-impressive record of 50 wins, 25 losses, and 7 draws, right? Huge upset, he beat Max Baer. World champion Max Baer, that is. Jack Dempsey. These are some of the most impressive wins of all time. Jack Dempsey comes back to defeat Louis Firpo after being knocked completely out of the ring. And Jack Dempsey came back in there and knocked Firpo down 10 times. And guess how long the fight lasted? 2 rounds. 11 knockdowns in 2 rounds. Yep. Evander Holyfield came in as a 25-1 underdog, but went on to defeat Iron Mike Tyson by an 11th round TKO. And the real deal proved his victory was not a fluke by dominating the rematch before Tyson was disqualified for biting Holyfield's ear, not once but twice. Not only biting it, bit a part of it off. Didn't just bite it, he bit part of it off. Okay? Leon Spinks defeats an aging Muhammad Ali in their first fight. Now, Ali came back and won the rematch, but Leon was a 7-fight novice. Defeated not just any heavyweight, Muhammad Ali, and he was the champion at the time, right? But Muhammad won the rematch. Michael Spinks, Leon's little brother, follows in his brother's footsteps by defeating the heavily favored Larry Holmes for the IBF and ring heavyweight championships. Holmes was 48-0, just 1 win away from tying Rocky Marciano's record of 49-0, right? But he fell 1 fight short, while the much smaller and lighter Spinks was moving up for light heavyweight. And unlike his big brother Leon, who lost the rematch, Spinks also won the rematch against Holmes. Okay? Spinks also won the rematch. Unlike his big brother Leon, lost the rematch. 940. Oh shoot. I see my 941 subscribers. I said, I got 941 views. That's the subscribers. Okay. Frankie Randall upsets the legendary Julio Cesar Chavez by sending him to the canvas for the first time in his career. Chavez got up off the mat, but he lost a split decision. And he was like 87-0 at that point. That was a huge upset. I don't know what the odds was, but they were heavy in JCC's favor for that one. Okay? This is another big one. Iran Barkley upsets Thomas the Hitman Hearns by a 3rd round knockout. At this time, Thomas Hearns was a dominant force in boxing. He only had 2 losses to 2 all-time legends, Sugar Ray Leonard and Marvin Hagler. So imagine the shock when Iran Barkley stopped him in the 3rd round. That was huge. That was huge. Then Antonio Tarver upset Roy Jones Jr., stunning 2nd round knockout. Big George Foreman beat Smoking Joe Frazier. Yes, it was an upset in their first fight. The ease with which Foreman dominated Frazier came as a shock to many. Not to mention, it scared the hell out of his future opponents. That's why when he was fighting Ali, everybody was so scared for Ali's health. Even Ali's own team didn't think he was going to beat Big George Foreman. Right? Lord Honeyghan had to upset over the heavy favorite Donald Curry. This was another big one. Hasim Rahman and Lennox Lewis. Remember that one? Hasim Rahman defeated the heavily favored Lennox Lewis. The Lion was tamed by the unlikely Rahman, who lacked any notable wins on his record at that point. But he got Lennox out of there in the 5th round. Carlos Baldomir defeated Zab Judah. Okay. And I got something else good for you right now. Now, we are going to talk about some of the great skilled boxers with very little knockout power. I got like 10 guys that won championships in boxing with no knockouts. 0.000. Same knockout rate I got. 0.00. But they were champions in boxing. Incredible. Mm-hmm. Yep. They won. These are some boxers. Had great skills, but didn't have knockout power. Not much knockout power. I got 9 or 10 that were champions with 0 knockouts in their careers. Okay? Now these are underpowered boxers. These are underpowered boxers with the lowest knockout percentages in history among boxers with decent records, right? Now let's talk about this first. I think I talked about this before, but we're going to talk about it again. Muhammad Ali had often been said that he was not a power puncher or lacked true knockout power, but that is not true. That is not true. Ali don't belong on this list. He's not on it. I want to point that out. Ali once had a 23 fight stretch where he was 23-0 with 20 knockouts or 87% knockout rate, right? That's George Foreman and Rocky Marciano type territory right there, right? And 17 of those 20 knockouts came in the first 7 rounds. So you do not have knockout power and you go 23-0 with 20 knockouts stretch in your career. And a lot of times, Ali could have had knockouts earlier in fights, but he always made predictions. He encouraged fighters some extra rounds just to make his predictions come true. Okay? And he fought during the golden age of boxing. These are some of the people he had knockouts over. Sonny Liston, twice. Floyd Patterson, 2-time heavyweight champion. Okay? Archie Moore, the iron-chinned Oscar Bonavita. Ali stopped Oscar Bonavita the first time. Only time Oscar got stopped in his career in 87 fights was by Muhammad Ali. 68 fights. Oscar had 68 fights, and Ali was the only man to ever stop him. Jimmy Ellis, Cleveland Williams, Jerry Corey, Zar Farley, Henry Cooper. Okay, those are some of the fighters that Ali stopped. So he don't belong on this list. Okay, let's look at some of the other people on it. Floyd Mayweather Jr. What's up, Mike Grimm? Mike Grimm is in the building. We're talking about some boxers who had good boxing skills but didn't have much knockout power now. Let's salute Mike Grimm. Floyd Mayweather Jr. Floyd had a 54% knockout percentage, but it dropped to 18% in his last 11 fights, not counting the sham match with Conor McGregor, a non-boxer. Chris Bird is often mentioned as lacking power, but he had a 46.8% knockout rate, which is superior for many of the people on this list. Ronald Winky Wright, 43.1% knockout rate, Floyd did his best to avoid fighting Winky, who may have beat him at his own game, right? Now, Winky had a decent power, but when he started moving up, that's when his power kind of dropped. He started being more of a defensive fighter than knockout fighter when he started moving up. Pernell Whitaker, aka Sweet Pea, started out his career with 6 knockouts in his first 7 fights. Then he apparently let up on the gas. He had 6 knockouts in his first 7 fights. Then Squeaky let up on the knockout gas. Leon Spinks had over 50% of his wins by knockout, but he lost so much that his overall knockout percentage fell to 30.4%, a very low rate for a heavyweight champion. Willie Pep had 241 fights, but just 65 knockouts, okay? He was nicknamed the Will o' the Wisp because he was hard to hit, not because he was underpowered, but he wasn't the heaviest hitter. Now, Usyk has 3 knockouts in his last 10 fights, okay? But he does have a 62.5% overall knockout percentage. That's not real good for a heavyweight, though, okay? Now, Billy Conn had great speed, but he didn't have too much knockout power. And remember, Conn was beating the great Joe Louis in their first fight. But in his own words, he went Irish thick. He tried to mix it up inside with the brown bum and got knocked out. Because remember, in the 12th round, Billy Conn almost had Joe Louis out of there. So he went out in 13th round and finished the job, and Joe Louis finished him instead. But what's up, Al Booger? In the building. Salute. Al Booker in the building. We're talking about some great fighters with didn't have a lot of knockout power. And B3's Picks TV in the building. What's up, B3? How are you today? Good to see you. Okay. Harry Grant, he was a top 10 boxer, according to a number of boxing experts. But Harry did it with speed and skill, not knockout power. Sammy Engett, in 131 fights, Sammy had just 23 knockouts, okay? He had signature wins over Willie Pep, George Dixon, Ike Williams, Lou Jenkins, Pity Saran, and Lee Rodak twice. But he just didn't do it with knockout power. And Sandy Engett, get this. Despite he had 23 knockouts in 131 fights. But guess what his nickname was? The Louisville Slugger. Go figure. Go figure. Let me see. Let's see what that knockout rate is, man. Let's see. His nickname was the Louisville Slugger, right? With a knockout rate of 17%, the Louisville Slugger. But he had a very successful career, just didn't do it with knockouts, right? Pauline Malignaggi had 44 fights, just 7 knockouts. Fernando David Saucedo had 75 fights, right? 69 wins, only had 10 knockouts in his career. He had his first 33 fights before he got his first knockout. Then he went to 48 fights before he got his second knockout. Then he found a source of power. Had 5 knockouts in his next 9 fights. After going 48 fights with just 2 knockouts, he had 5 in his next 9 fights. He found some power somewhere. Wasn't that something, Al Booger? Man had a 70% knockout ratio, called him the Louisville Slugger. Wow. Jack Britton, another great fighter, had a 12% knockout rate. Nicolino Los, he had 136 fights, but he only had 14 knockouts. Okay. I did his rate the other day. It was something like 12%. He had 117 wins, 14 knockouts. Let's see what that is real quick. Not good. Wow. 1.1%. Damn. 1% of his fights he got knockouts in. But a great fighter. These are some great fighters that didn't have a lot of knockout power. Tommy Lockwood had 170 fights, won 124 of them, just 14 knockouts. Midget Wolgas had 217 fights. He won 143, 17 knockouts. Patty DeMarco had 8 knockouts in 104 fights. Patty won 2 of his 3 fights with the great Sadie Sadler by knockout. But he only had 8. Oh, that was 2 of the 8, right? After his second win over Sadler, he went 61 more fights, didn't have any knockouts. Wow. Erup Khan was a European champion. He was 15-1 in his career, right? 1 knockout in his entire career. Slapsy Maxie Rosenblum, and he had that nickname Slapsy Maxie because when he punched, he kind of slapped. Slapsy Maxie had 298 fights, just 19 knockouts. Kid Cacciatata, nicknamed Kid Slap, right? Very appropriate nickname. Real name was Francisco Lucero, right? He had 72 wins in his career, just 5 knockouts. Isidore Schwartz, he stood 5 foot 1 inches tall with a 62-inch reach and was nicknamed the Ghetto Midget. Like Benny, I guess that was a play on Benny Leonard, the Ghetto Wizard. This guy was called the Ghetto Midget, right? He had 125 fights, 7 knockouts. Leo Rodak was a world champion with 115 fights, just 6 knockouts. Remember the great Johnny Dundee? Get this. Johnny Dundee had 334 fights in his career, just 17 knockouts. Barry Jones won the WBO Super Featherweight Championship in 1997. He had an 18 wins, 1 loss, 1 draw record in 20 fights. Just 1 knockout for his career. Just 1 knockout. That's wrong. How can that be 5%? 1 knockout in 18 fights is less than 1%. Yeah, 0.5%. This is better than mine. Mine is 0.0. So his was 0.5%. Okay. Memphis Powell Moore, aka Thomas Wilson Moore. He's a Hall of Famer. He had 265 fights, just 11 knockouts. Oscar Cueta had 54. Oscar Cueta, he had 54 fights in his career, right? Won 48, lost 4, 2 draws, just 2 knockouts in his career, for a knockout rate of 0.4%. 0.4%. Dury Lawrence, he was a heavyweight, 44 fights. He won 24, lost 15, 4 draws, 1 no contest. Had 0 knockouts. Now me and him got the same knockout rate, 0.0%. Heavyweight, 44 fights, 0 knockouts. Wow. Now, these are some fighters that won titles, didn't have any knockouts. These fighters won titles, didn't have no knockouts. Jean-Claude Lepente, a French fighter, bantamweight. he had 63 fights, no knockouts. Enrique Rodriguez, 29 fights, no knockouts, and they won titles. Findele Geka, a South African bantamweight, had 36 fights, no knockouts. Peter Feher, Slovakian super featherweight champion, okay, had 79 fights, no knockouts. He fought from 1995 to 2007. Never heard of him. Frederick Gorilla, his nickname was Gorilla Siswana, a South African welterweight champion. 30 fights on the dot, no knockouts, nickname Gorilla. How the hell he get that nickname, man? 30 fights with no knockouts. But he had a title. Mm-hmm. Wow. And Roger Flores was the WBA fellow Latin junior welterweight champion, whatever that is. He had 45 fights, no knockouts. 1992 to 2003. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's crazy. Now, Mike Tyson and Buster Douglas. We've never talked about what happened in that fight. Did Buster really beat him, or did Don King had to fix him for that one? Let's talk about that. Did Buster really win that fight, or did Don King fix it? Huh? Let's see what happened. Buster Douglas versus Iron Mike Tyson. Let's take a look at that. We always talked about how Buster beat him, and Buster got the long count, Mike got the short count, but what happened? Now, Buster Douglas's win over Mike Tyson on February 11th, 1990 is widely regarded as one of the biggest upsets in boxing history. Douglas was a 42-1 underdog. He knocked Tyson out in the 10th round, winning the heavyweight championship of the world. Okay? Now let's talk about it. There is no credible evidence to suggest that the fight was fixed. Excuse me. I need to drink real quick. There's no credible evidence suggesting that this fight was fixed. Except Don King was involved with it. That's evidence right there. Okay? But there's no credible evidence, all jokes aside, that this fight was fixed. Douglas's performance was impressive. He utilized effective boxing tactics. He maintained distance and displayed resilience, especially after being knocked down in the 8th round. Tyson, who was seen as invincible at that time, seemed unprepared and out of shape, contributing to the surprising outcome of the fight. Now, while conspiracy theories sometimes arise in sports, the consensus among boxing analysts and historians is that Douglas won the fight fair and square. His win is celebrated as a testament to the unpredictability of sports. Now, what were the key strategies that Buster Douglas used to defeat Mike Tyson that night? Go ahead, y'all ask. What were the key strategies Buster used in that fight? There was some crazy nicknames in there, Booker. Man had 0 knockouts, called the Gorilla. Like he was like that. He said, Booker said, yes, Douglas got a long count and every chance to recover. Tyson got counted out unfairly, in Booker's opinion. Okay, let's talk about this thing. Now, what were the key strategies Buster used to defeat Mike that night? Okay. Now, Buster Douglas employed several key strategies to defeat Mike Tyson in their historic fight. Number 1, excuse me, jab utilization. Douglas effectively used the jab to keep Tyson at bay. It was a beautiful jab, too. This allowed him to control the distance and set up combinations. Number 2, Buster used movement and footwork. Douglas maintained good lateral movement, making it difficult for Tyson to corner him. He used his footwork to create angles for attacks while avoiding Mike's power punching. Number 3, combination punching. Rather than relying on single punches, Douglas threw combinations, which overwhelmed Tyson and kept him guessing. Number 4, staying composed. Despite being knocked down in the 8th round, Douglas remained calm and focused. His mental resilience helped him recover and continue fighting effectively. Number 5, body shots. Douglas targeted Tyson's body, which not only scored points, but also wore Tyson down and reduced his stamina. Number 6, defensive skills. Buster employed good defensive techniques such as head movement and blocking to minimize the impact of Tyson's punches when they did land on him. Number 7, physical condition. Douglas appeared in better physical shape than Tyson and compared to his previous fights, which contributed to his endurance and overall performance. These strategies combined with Douglas's determination led to his surprising historic win over Tyson. Okay. Now, how did the fight impact both fighters' careers afterward? Good question. How did this fight impact both fighters' careers afterward? Mike Williams says, offensively, he was whipping his ass. Yes, he was. Okay. Now, the fight between Buster Douglas and Mike Tyson had significant impact on both fighters' careers afterwards. Let's look at Buster first. Career peak. Douglas became the heavyweight champion, achieving recognition and fame overnight. However, it didn't last long because he struggled to maintain that momentum. Number 2, subsequent fights. After defeating Tyson, Douglas fought Evander Holyfield for the title, but lost in the 3rd round. He never regained the same level of success, and he retired after a few more fights. Legacy. Douglas is remembered primarily for his victory over Tyson, which is often cited as one of the greatest upsets in sports history. Now, how did it affect Mike's career after that fight? Career decline. Tyson's loss marked the beginning of a downward spiral in his career. He lost his aura of invincibility, which affected his confidence and performance in subsequent fights. Yeah, that was huge. He lost that aura of invincibility after that because he had most of his fights won before they even started before that. But once Buster did that, everybody, oh no, let me at him. Mike ain't invincible. And number 2 had affected Mike. Legal issues. Following the loss to Buster, Tyson faced personal and legal troubles, including a prison sentence for rape in the early 1990s, which derailed his boxing career. And like I was just saying, reputation. The defeat contributed to a shift in Tyson's reputation from a feared champion to a controversial figure with a troubled personal life. He eventually did make a comeback, but he never returned to his former dominance. But he did become champion again. Overall, Douglas's victory was a high point for him, but he struggled to maintain his status, while Tyson's loss marked a critical turning point that led to many challenges in his life and career. Okay, one more question. What was the reaction from boxing fans and analysts after the fight? What was the reaction from the fans and the analysts and the experts after the fight? Good question. The reaction from boxing fans and analysts after Buster Douglas defeated Mike Tyson was one of shock and disbelief. Here are some key points regarding the aftermath of the fight. Number 1, shock and upset. Many fans were stunned by the outcome, as Tyson was considered unbeatable at that time. Douglas's victory was seen as a monumental upset in sports history. Praise for Buster. Analysts praised Douglas for his skill and strategy, his ability to withstand Tyson's punches, and his effective jab were highlighted as key factors in his win. Yeah, that Buster could have beat anybody. Mike wasn't in the best of shape. He didn't train the best, but still, the performance Buster put in had a lot to do with it too. That Buster wouldn't have got stopped by Holyfield in no third round in that next fight. Criticism of Tyson. Just like was a lot of praise for Buster, was a lot of criticism of Mike after that. Some experts criticized Tyson for his lack of conditioning and focus. Questions arose about his training regimen and mental state leading up to the fight, because Don King had got Customado's people totally out of the picture by then. Kevin Rooney was long gone, and Don King and Robin Gibbons had total control over Mike's life at that point, right? And number 4, the impact on the sport of boxing. The fight shifted the landscape of heavyweight boxing, leading to discussions about the need for fighters to remain disciplined and prepared, regardless of their past success. Historical context, that's big. Big historical context. Because when was it, 1990? 2025, 35 years later, we talking about it today. Historical context. Over time, Douglas's victory has been recognized as a pivotal moment in boxing history, emblematic of the sport's unpredictability and the potential for underdogs to triumph. Right? Overall, the fight generated significant media coverage and reshaped perceptions of both fighters, Buster and Mike. Yes, it did. But your historical context, that's big because we're talking about it today, 35 years later. And another big thing came out of the fight. Mike's invincibility was gone. And when they got out of prison, Don King tried to set up that fight between Mike and Drew Sheldon in Las Vegas. He had Mike knock him out in the first round like he was back. And he knocked Sheldon out with the left hook, looked like it didn't even land. And Sheldon got up staggering. Would you sprain your ankle when you hit the mat? Because the left hook shouldn't have you staggering. If it did land, it was just like a glancing blow. But he made it look good. He got up staggering and the referee stopped. But now, what is the worst fight in boxing history? What is the worst fight in boxing history? Glad y'all asked. Let's talk about some of the worst fights in boxing history now. Okay? Talk about it. Them got late on me. We're gonna talk about body punching tomorrow. But what is the worst fight in boxing history? Now, determining the worst fight in boxing history can be subjective, as it often depends on criteria such as the quality of the fight, the level of competition, or the behavior of the fighters. But a few fights are frequently cited for various reasons. Okay, this is some of them. The worst fights in boxing history. This is some of them. Who is that? That's Canelo and Triple G3. Yeah, we're talking about some of the worst fights in boxing history. It's gonna be our fight to highlight this talk. Yeah, Canelo and Triple G3. Just Do Boxing calls it the pay-per-view sparring match, and that was the perfect name for it. The pay-per-view sparring match. Right? Okay. Number 1, these are some of the worst fights in boxing history. Lamont Brewster versus Andrew Galata. Andrew Galata in a couple of them. 2005. This fight is often criticized for its lack of competitiveness and the poor performances of Galata, who seemed uninterested and was ultimately stopped in the 5th round. Number 2, Mike Tyson versus Frank Bruno, 1996. Now, while not a bad fight in terms of excitement, it is often viewed as disappointing because Tyson dominated Bruno, leading to a one-sided fight. Ricardo Mayorga versus Fernando Vargas, 2007. This fight had a lot of hype, but ended up being a lackluster performance, with both fighters appearing sluggish and uninterested. Some of the worst fights in boxing history. Riddick Bowe versus Andrew Galata, 1996. While this fight had its moments, it ended in a controversial disqualification after a series of low blows by Galata, leading to chaos in the arena. It was a riot in there. Now, many factors contribute to the perception of a fight being the worst, including the fighter's performances, the fight's significance, and the build-up to the event, right? Okay, so again, what factors contribute to a fight being considered the worst in boxing history? Okay, look at some more factors that contribute to a fight being the worst fight in boxing history. Lack of competitiveness. One-sided fights where one fighter dominates without challenge can be seen as boring and unfulfilling for fans. Or a poor performance. If fighters appear unprepared, sluggish, or disinterested, it can lead to a lackluster fight that fails to entertain. Controversial decisions or cheating judges. Fights that end in questionable decisions or disqualifications can frustrate fans and analysts, leading to negative perception. Injury or stoppage. Fights that are abruptly halted due to injury or other factors may leave fans wanting more, impacting the overall experience. Perfect example, Rafael Espinosa and Robisi, that last fight. Perfect example of injury or that kind of stoppage. Yeah, that was very disappointing the way that ended. Pre-fight hype versus execution. If a fight is heavily promoted and fails to deliver excitement or quality, it may be labeled as disappointing. And the behavior of the fighters. Unsportsmanlike conduct, such as excessive fouling or disrespectful behavior, can tarnish a fight's reputation. Lack of action. Fights with minimal exchanges, low punch volume, or excessive clinching can be deemed boring. Any Devin fight. Sorry, Devin. Sorry. Unfulfilled expectations. When a fight features fighters with great potential, but results in a lack of excitement, it can lead to disappointment. Your number 7, lack of action, any Devin fight. These factors can vary in significance based on individual preference, but collectively, they shape the perception of a fight's quality. Yeah, bad fight is very subjective, though, Depends on what you like. Some people like the way Devin fights, so hey, they're called Devin fans. I'm gonna stop. Okay, let's look at some more controversial fights before we get out of here. I'm going to leave Devin alone. Okay? Define Artist says, my yoga press conferences were 10 times better than the fight. That's right, Define Artist. After the press conference, you saw all the action. Now, several fights have sparked significant controversy due to decisions, judges' decisions, the refereeing, or the actions of the fighters. Let's look at a couple of them. Muhammad Ali, Sonny Liston 2, right? The way that ended with the phantom punch. People in the front row didn't see the punch, right? Ali and Liston didn't see the punch. So yeah, that was very disappointing the way that ended. Jake LaMotta versus Billy Fox, 1940, and that was 1965, I believe, right? Yeah. Yeah, many thought that fight was a fix due to the phantom punch that dropped Liston. Jake LaMotta versus Billy Fox, 1947. LaMotta allegedly threw the fight to secure a title shot. The outcome raised questions about the integrity of boxing, leading to investigations. We talked about that last week. Jake admitted under oath in front of Congress. I was talking about in front of college. Congress. Let me slow down. In front of Congress that he threw the fight. Duran versus Leonard 2. Yeah, the no Moss fight. Right, where Duran quit. Yeah. That's the whole thing in a nutshell about that fight. And you know what pissed me off with Duran? He was well within the fight. It was only the 8th round. It was 15-round fight then. 7 more rounds to go. Figueroa was leading by 2 points on one card and 1 point on 2, or it might have been 1 point on 1 card and 2 points on 2 cards. But with 7 rounds to go, Duran still was well within the fight, man. Could have won it. Why did he do that? And I was bragging, and that led to me getting the nickname No Mars. Because I was doing so much bragging, I was telling everybody Duran gonna stop letting. And he could have won the fight and quit, man. That was crazy. Mike Tyson versus Evander Holyfield. 2. Y'all know about that one, the bite fight. Tyson was disqualified for biting, not just biting Holyfield's ear. He bit a piece of it off, remember? He didn't just bite it. He bit part of it off. The bite fight. Oscar De La Hoya versus Felix Trinidad, because Oscar led on points, but lost a split decision. He took his foot off the gas at the end. And his corner told him to do that. Never do that, man. The judges see that. And Felix got the split decision. Very controversial decision. But if Oscar wouldn't have took his foot off the gas in those championship rounds, there wouldn't have been a question. All he needed was one of 11 or 12. He had it one, but I guess the Felix got both of them because Oscar took his foot off the gas. Mm-hmm. And oh yeah, Pacquiao versus Tim Bradley won. Wow. 2000. Oscar Felix was in 1999. Pacquiao Bradley won 2012. Tim Bradley's wife even said he lost. No, I made that up. I made that up. She was thinking it. Like, baby, you didn't win that fight. Let me stop. But Tim Bradley, Manny Pacquiao won. Bradley won a split decision in a fight. Everybody thought he lost. Even Tim Bradley's wife. That's right, his wife thought he lost too. Pacquiao had clearly won the fight, leading to widespread outrage and calls for better judging. I don't know what those judges were looking at, man. It wasn't even close. It wasn't even close. Did you see Tim Bradley's face when the ring announcer said he won? I could have sworn he said, what? I saw the word what form out of his mouth. And they said, and the winner is Tim Bradley. He said, what? Mm-hmm. And then Canelo and Triple G3, that's the fight up there. The pay-per-view sparring match. You should have never even had that one. The third fight. You know, yeah, that was the pay-per-view sparring match. But Triple G got paid and went on out the past. And Triple G saved boxing in the Olympics because he's the president of that world boxing, the new body that's going to oversee boxing in the Olympics, because the International Olympic Committee had said if they don't have a body to oversee boxing for 2028, it wasn't going to be in the Olympics, because the International Olympic Committee did it themselves 2020 and 2024. They said they weren't doing it again. They fired the last one after 2016. But I think Triple G, he's a head of the Olympic Committee in Kazakhstan, where he's from, and president of World Boxing. So yeah. And then Fury Wilder won the controversy. Wasn't that the one they had to draw in? I think. The one where Fury was out, sleep, and just woke up all of a sudden. Wasn't that one? Whichever one that was a very controversial fight. But yeah, that was it. Tomorrow we're going to talk about counterpunching. But yeah, you're right, Define on him. Mayorga press conference was better than the fight. We called on Mayorga fight. Don't miss the press conference because you're going to miss all the action. Yeah, we're going to talk about body punching tomorrow. And then Thursday, we're going to talk about Australia this week. And then it's the first of the month. So it's going to be an active boxer. It's going to be the real deal. Amanda Serrano this week. The life and career of Amanda Serrano Friday. Okay? Just Do Boxing is next. Al Booger, Mike Grimm, Just Do Boxing, Thomas Hill, Mike Mazik, Define Arnie 1, Technique, and Miss Cass. Appreciate everyone that stopped by today. We'll be back tomorrow with another historical episode of Cass Sports the Box Story. Because if it's Monday through Friday, 2 p.m., it's the Box Historian bringing you all that boxing history. Appreciate everybody for coming through today, 1,000%. Everybody have a great afternoon. Just do boxing up next. This is Cash Sports. I will see y'all.